Welcome everyone to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we're excited to have Cynthia Young Fackrell, who wrote Gravity's Embrace. Can you show us the book?
Trying to keep the glare off. It's not working very well.
Yeah. And so we'll talk more about the book as we go along, but we thought we'd meet you first. And Randy, thanks for co-hosting.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Gene. And Cynthia, welcome. We're excited to have you. And what an incredible story that you have to tell. And by the way, I love that title. I think that's so apropos for what your story is.
Yeah.
And no, we appreciate you being here, Cynthia. By the way, one thing about this channel is we have incredible guests, but we also have incredible listeners. We are so grateful for them. And for those of you watching this show, we would greatly appreciate it if you just hit that little like button and subscribe if you haven't. You probably have already, but if you haven't, please like and subscribe, because that helps Gene and I as our channel continues to grow and helps the algorithms on YouTube or whatever you're watching this on.
That's right. We always appreciate growing. Makes us feel good, makes us want to get more people on. Thanks, everybody. So, Cynthia, tell us about where you grew up and what life was like on the West Coast of California.
Because back then, 60s, 70s was awesome. I like to say I had the most wonderful and awful life because I loved where I grew up. I grew up playing on the beach and in the waves.
So you grew up in Goleta, but that's real near Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I was born in Oxnard, which is Ventura area. And then when I was 6 months old, we moved to Santa Barbara. And then my parents built a house in Goleta when I was like 7. And so that's how I think of it, where I grew up, because that's what I remember is in Goleta. And if you know Highway 101, it ran right behind our house. You couldn't see it because there was like a hill, but we could walk from our house and run across the freeway and go to what's called Haskell's Beach, which is still there, but they built a big old resort there. But when we went, it was like a surfer's beach, and we just would go there and walk and swim and
fun.
So,
yeah,
it was awesome. And then Goleta Beach, she went there a lot. My older brother was into bicycling, so I got into it. So I used to ride my bike all over the place. And back when 10 speeds were the big deal.
So you grew up when the Beach Boys just lived down 101 from you.
Well, Beach Boys were 60s. This was 70s.
So you remember the 70s more than...
Yeah, but we did. Beach Boys were a big music thing when I was growing up. That was part of our culture type of thing. So
I love me some Beach Boys.
I do too. Yeah, I miss the ocean a lot. I would love to live by it. I sit and watch on like HGTV. I watch the shows where they're by the beach houses and the lake houses. I'm like, oh, my dream someday.
And so what are the birth order of your siblings?
Well, my parents married in 51. My oldest brother was born in 52, and then they had a daughter, 53. Would have been my sister, but she died when she was 3.5. So they were only going to have the 2 kids. So I guess I wouldn't be here if she hadn't died. And then I was born, and then I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, which is who the book is about.
So your family experienced more tragedy than just your sister dying before you were born.
Well, that's my dad had a rough life. My sister died, and then my mother died when I was 10. And then my younger brother, the book is about him, was 32 when he disappeared. So, yeah, and then lots of family and stuff in there, different family members. And so it's riddled with a lot of death. It took me a long time to figure out why I had to live with so much death.
Prior to joining the LDS Church at 15, was there very much religion in your life?
My mother, when she was alive, we were going to a Presbyterian church. I never much cared for it, but as a kid, but that's what she was sort of in with. I know there was some neighbor that wanted her to go to the Catholic church, but she didn't. Then I have a funny story that goes with that, where one day I was home and my mom had gone across the street to the neighbor, and somebody came by proselyting their religion. I don't know what they were, but as a kid, and they asked me what our religion was, and all I could think of was pedestrian. Think of Presbyterian. So we were a church of pedestrians.
Yeah. I think I was in my 50s when I finally looked up what the hell Presbyterian meant, and they were presbyters.
Presbyterians.
What does that word mean? And it has something to do with the hierarchical structure.
Oh yeah, I never went back or did anything with that religion at all. So.
Yeah. So how did you come to join the LDS Church?
I had a girlfriend who was lived several houses up, and we were really close. She was a year younger than me, and they were Mormon, and her mom got brave and sent the missionaries to her house.
Would you get invited to young women's activities?
Yeah, I did a lot of that. I remember the friend when they wanted me to go to church with them, I think, and I remember her telling me, she's like, "Now don't be a weird out," because it was like Fast Sunday, where everybody gets up and bears their testimony. And she was like worried that she's like, it's gonna seem really weird. I was like, oh, okay. I was more interested in, again, kind of the social and the fun stuff, because back then in the church, I mean, we did things like we went out on the weekends and went boating. We went, I don't know if you know Lake Lopez in California. Okay. Well, the whole ward or a couple wards, I don't know, would go up there and we'd camp, and they'd bring their ski boats and we'd go water skiing. And I just, that was like so awesome to me. I just absolutely loved that. So those kind of things, I don't know that they do that much. And then the same friend, there's another place in California called Dinky Creek, and you could like slide down the rocks and stuff in the water. And the whole bunch of people, I don't think it was a church thing, but it was all church people. And we all went there and stayed in this camp place. And have you ever heard of Kangaroo Court? At the end of it, they kind of spoof on it, what's funny things everybody's done, and give them awards and stuff. I remember they did that at the end. So,
sliding down on rocks doesn't seem like a nice.
No, it was like the creek or river thing ran over these smooth rocks, and you could slide down them.
So they're smooth. They might have had some algae growing on them, so they're a little slippery. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember it being fun, and I have a few pictures of it.
Huh.
They have a place called Slide Rock right up by Sedona, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the place is always packed because people love that. It's the same type of deal. I mean, you slide down these rocks, and it's smooth. It's
almost like a massage, maybe.
Well, except they're smooth, and I don't know what keeps them so smooth.
When you're a kid, things don't hurt as much as when you're older. I know I do it now, but back then it was fun. And I think we wore like shorts. I don't remember. Of course, it was Mormon thing, so you had to, cover up, especially as girls. You couldn't wear bikinis or anything. So,
would you have the discussions from the missionaries at your friend's house or at church, or?
It was in my house, and my dad permitted it. Again, that's another thing I laugh at, because back then I was wearing little shorts and like a halter top, and here are the missionaries. So they're trying to teach me. I don't know any different. So, but
were they elders or sisters?
No, they were men or boys, whatever.
Oh, really? They were, and they taught you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think in my mission that would not be allowed.
I think I went through 2 or 3 sets of them, because I remember one of them got down on his knees and begged me to get baptized, basically for his numbers. And I was like, no, I'll do it when I want to, not because you begged me to.
Well, at least he wasn't proposing. That's what Randy and I were thinking.
Exactly. I'm thinking, what?
No, it was, I mean, my dad was around and stuff. I wasn't at the house by myself, but it was them and me, like in our living room.
So what caused you to finally join then?
Well, I prayed about it and thought I got an answer that said that that's what I should do, or that the church was true, type of thing. I look back on it and think, well, that's what I needed in my life. So if you believe in any kind of divine intervention or whatever, it's going to say, yeah. And then, I ended up meeting my husband because I went to Rick's college.
Right, eventually.
And that's where I met him. So,
but you joined kind of to have more friendship than just your brothers and your dad, more interaction, like a community that you could sort of have like a family.
When
situation.
I look back, I don't think I thought of it that way at the time. I was invested in believing in the religion. I remember the belief that God and Jesus and all that are like human, or you were human, or to me it was more relatable than thinking of them as like some gaseous cloud that other Christians I've talked to, they don't think of God as being like us. So that never made sense. So it kind of made sense to me that they would be more, if a God's going to create you, you would think they would create you in their image, basically. So
right, and I guess that's just different human beings. Some human beings want God to be ethereal and undefined, and other human beings want God to be relatable and to be as man is, God once was a little couplet that, and then as man is, oh wait, as God is, man may
God
become.
is.
Yeah, and so that's attractive to some people, and I sometimes I liken it to like ice cream, right? Some people love chocolate ice cream, some people love vanilla, some people love strawberry, some people love garlic ice cream because down the street from us is Hollister, where they have garlic festival. They grow a lot of garlic, so they have garlic ice cream, and like some people just love weird flavors. They make weird flavors because people will buy it. And I remember liking black licorice ice cream growing up. It probably was my favorite for a little while.
I would take that over garlic.
Yeah.
At least,
but some people hate black licorice, right? So there's a flavor of religion for everybody. And people are like a lot of times looking for their flavor is kind of all I'm saying.
well, if everybody's mind can think differently, you can think up whatever you want. I mean, literally, that's what religion is somebody's putting a name to what they think God is. So you can.
Right. And everybody in a congregation has even their own little different feelings. Like some people might think that God hates gays. Some people might think that God loves gays because they're still his creation. Some people might think that like the current sort of thing happening within Mormonism, in my view, is that there's sort of a gospel of obedience where people are saying, you have to believe the letter of the law, which to me sounds a lot like what Jesus was fighting against when he was, said to be around. And then there's a gospel of love that I think that Jesus was promoting, where you just kind of love your neighbor, you let's all get along kind of a thing. And so people are always going to be butting heads, even within their own congregations, about believe or not believe.
I used to ask people, like family members and stuff that are Mormon on my husband's side and other people, I'd say, what was Christ's main message? And they just sit there and look at me like, huh? And I go, it was love one another. That was his main message.
Right. Wasn't follow the prophet.
yeah, it was nothing else. It's like, I'm like, how do you miss that? How do you go to church every Sunday and miss that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Exactly.
as you mature, you're graduating from high school. Did you have favorite subjects in high school?
Art.
Right.
My grandmother and my mother were both artists, and I just followed in their footsteps. I got A's in all my art classes, excelled, but everything else.
Is
I
there a medium
struggled.
you prefer, like
Um,
charcoal or
no, I
color or
do all of
acrylic?
it. I
You do
do,
all of it.
uh, yeah, oil. I started out with watercolor was one of my favorite, and then when I went to college, we did oil. 'Cause I have associates in art, so I did, and that was at Rick's College, and I did. It was called General Art was the major, and we did everything. We sculpted, we oil painted, we watercolor, we figure drew, we did lettering, we did pencil drawing. I mean, just everything. So I kind of dabble in many mediums. So
I was a finger painter.
we,
Finger painting was about where I started and ended. Yeah. Is that a thing still, by the way? Finger painting? Or is that just back in the day?
my little kids do it.
Do
They
they?
do it in preschool and stuff. A lot of
They still do that?
yeah, as far as I know, or I know, I think when my kids were little, they were in school, they do it with pudding so they could lick their fingers. Edible.
Now
So
I'm going to
Wow.
get back into finger painting, I
there you
think.
go. You can go play with your food and not feel bad. And then hang it on the wall.
I had an art instructor at community college who um, sort of mimicked children's art, like the pans that are like a circle with the just lines out, and
Oh yeah.
hair that's just like spaghetti.
Uh-huh.
And she purposely tried to make her art look like a kindergartner's, first grader's
Yeah.
art, and
Oh, wow.
but with like some sort of intention. I wish I had asked her more questions about it, but it seemed kind of strange to me at first, right? But now I understand that people do lots of different things in art, and so I appreciate
Yeah.
more things.
Art's it's a crazy place. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of weird
And
stuff.
so
I
you
mean,
mentioned that you went to Rick's College. Was that your first choice?
no, I wanted to go to BYU, of course, but my grades weren't good enough, so they let me go to Rick's.
Yeah, and
And I
Rick's
went.
College now, for people who are younger,
It's
is called
BYU.
BYU Idaho,
Yeah,
but it was the Rick's College Vikings. I remember my older brother went there as well.
yeah. I never paid much attention to sports other than basketball. I went to some of the games because some of the guys there were cute that I wanted to watch. And football, I've never been into football, so I was never cared about that. I know the first year I was there, I lived in the dorms, and the cheerleaders you had like a fence around it, and you had to go through a special place to go out, and there was always somebody there to check if you were at past curfew or whatever. But anyhow, so the cheerleaders would climb the fence and go out with the football, basketball, whatever guys out to the dunes, sand dunes, and drink and stuff, I guess. So I didn't see a
Which
lot
is
of
like
that when I
illegal.
was there, but it did go on. So
Right. And so
um,
did you graduate? Did you get your associate's
I
degree?
did it. I got my associates there, and then I
And you
went
said
to.
you met your husband.
Yeah, I met him my last year there, and because I ended up going 3 years, and then I met him that last year, and I was like, oh, that's why I had to go that last year so I could meet you. But he was going on a mission, so
You sent your husband on a mission
yeah,
and waited for him.
yeah, but it was like, okay, I'm here, and we love each other. You're gonna go, but there's no guarantees. Who knows what can happen in 2 years, But it
Right.
just happened to work out. I did actually date a guy for a little bit while he was on his mission, but
Getting that Dear John letter ready, but didn't send it. Didn't have to send it.
no. So yeah,
And so, but 2 years is a long time, and you completed your third year. He goes on his mission. What do you do for 2 years while he's on his mission?
Well, I went
Transfer?
to BYU for a year. Oh my God, that was like the worst. Rick's at that time they enforced the rules, and you lived by the rules, the church rules, the dress codes and hair codes and all that. I got to BYU and they did not enforce. It was too big. I was just like in shock, going, "What? How come you're letting them do all this stuff?" Because you have to. I was very like this. I can't be two-faced. If it's what I believe and I do, then that's what I think you're supposed to do. Shouldn't be a double life. And I just could not believe the stuff that I saw there. I was like, the complex I lived in, they called it Snob Hill. But they'd have parties. There was like 2 or 3 stories, and they'd be thrown up over the balconies and stuff, having these parties. And I was like,
what bad Mormons were around you?
Well, the funny thing was that all these parents are sending their kids to that school thinking none of this happens. And it's like, it's
Right.
going on just like any other college or university. I was just like, I met people that were, their parents were so strict with them growing up in the Mormon way. And as soon as they got away from home, they got all screwed up in drugs and everything. They just go off the deep end. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't stand it there. I hated it. I came home at Christmas. I was like, I can't stand it. I don't want to go back. That's all I could talk about. And my dad was like, well, then just don't go back. It's like, well, I have to. All my stuff's there. So, and I missed California. I missed it the whole time I was in Idaho and Utah. I was like, I want to go back home. And
so your future husband comes back from his mission. Where did he grow up?
He's from Idaho, Burley, Rupert area.
So if you were back home and he came home to Idaho, did you travel back to Idaho to go to his homecoming?
Yes, I did. If I can recall right, I came, but then he came out to California. And then part of the reason we enjoy skiing. I had taken skiing when I was at Rick's and learned at Targhee. And then I met him the next year, and he had been skiing since he was a kid. And when I was done with that class, I was like, I could take it or leave it. And then I met him and we started skiing, and that's what part of what we really like to do. So when he came back, we came to California. I remember we drove to Utah and skied, I think Alta or Snowbird. I can't remember which. And
so I was just thinking, gravity is important when you're skiing.
It's also dangerous. I just broke my arm this year. The worst crash I've ever had in all the years I've been skiing. I was going really fast and I hit something. I don't know what happened. The next thing I know, I was upside down, came down on my right shoulder and broke my tip of my humerus. I'm okay now. But it was like, whoa. That's never happened before. So 40-something.
I've wanted to water ski. I've wanted to water ski here, but I can't find a lake on a hill. So,
well, we do that too. We have a boat. We wakeboard. I like wakeboarding better than water skiing, and that's partly because we were ski instructors in South Dakota, and here in Idaho as well. But we had friends in South Dakota had a boat and took us out, and we had been learning to snowboard, so that kind of goes together. So.
I used to water ski. That was one of the fun things we'd do in the priest quorum. In church. I loved it, but I don't think I could get up now. I don't think I could do it now. I'd have to do a lot of practicing. But back then, oh yeah, I loved it. We tried. We'd see if we couldn't whip. If someone was on the skis too long and they were too good, then we'd start whipping them around, and see how
A challenge.
how fast we could get going. And how they could hold on to that rope, and of
Yeah.
course we'd end up flipping them over
I
and over
remember
and over
seeing, I
again.
don't know if it was on TV or if we went to a lake where they had some sort of celebration, but there were clown skiers, right? They would do performances where they would, go like, oh, oops, and then they'd be on their feet instead of skis, right?
Oh yeah, I've
And then
seen that.
they would have an act that was very entertaining and probably really dangerous, right? But
The
I don't know.
Harlem Globetrotters of skiing, right?
Yeah,
yeah, something.
I don't know. When we we bought our boat after those friends took us out. I was like, I gotta have a boat. So we went and looked and found one, and they gave us water skis with the boat. And when we bought it, and so that was the first thing we did was go out. And I was like, I gotta try water skiing. So,
Yeah. So where'd you get married?
um, L.A.
The
Temple.
LA Temple. And
Uh-huh.
so your family wasn't Mormon, so they weren't allowed to participate in that.
No, I regretted that. I mean, I was a wreck in the temple. I was like, what the hell? What's going, what
Right.
is this? And so it was really nerve wracking. And afterwards, I really had wished I'd at least waited and let my family, do the civil. Although I did try to have a civil ceremony type of thing afterwards we at the church, everybody was there. And I had a
Ring ceremony,
seminary teacher who was a lawyer. And so he sort of officiated our
ring
mock,
ceremony.
mock wedding. I call it. So, but
Yeah, but not the same. It's like
no, not the family is always angry because they can't be part of it. And I really think the temple thing for people like me should be more of a secret. Don't tell the family, type of thing. Go. Oftentimes afterwards, I think I should just eloped. Should just run off and got married.
so I first heard that maybe like 10 or 15 years ago that different places like France, they don't allow people to get married in the temple in France. So you have to do a government sanctioned sort of
Hmm.
thing first, no matter what. And so it was, they were allowed in France to do the civil ceremony and then get sealed anytime right away. Where in America at the time, if you got civilly married, you had to wait a whole year
Year,
before
yeah,
you could
yeah.
get sealed.
Mhm.
And so I just thought, this is like I say, 10 or 15 years ago. I thought, well, that should be everywhere
Mhm.
because my parents weren't worthy enough, even though they were members, to go to my wedding. And I just thought, oh, well, if they don't love me enough to get worthy to go to my wedding, they don't deserve, right?
Yeah.
And so we had a ring ceremony as well. But it's something I regretted like 20 years later because I was judgmental, right? As a young kid, maybe. But I just barely snuck in for my worthiness. So it's not like I thought it was easy to be worthy. But so anyhow, it's a situation where something needs to change. And now they do allow that. They allow
Mm.
you to be, but it's optional. You can get married civilly and then in America get sealed anytime you want, right after, or you can wait a few months or whatever.
When I went to church, they always spouted that, oh, the church is the same everywhere. Everything, God is the same. And it's like, through the years, I was like, well, you changed this, you changed that. It's like,
Right.
it's
You
not the
start to
same everywhere. It's
make a
not.
list of all the changes. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure you guys know what God is unchangeable means.
Well, it's like different places that I live too. It's like when I got to South Dakota, people were really different in the church. They weren't very nice, a lot of them. And I was
They're
like,
probably more Lutheran because they got more Lutheran converts, maybe.
well, yeah, there are a lot of people in South Dakota came from, oh gosh, I'm gonna blank, but I, I can't remember anyhow, Dutch or I can't anyhow. It was a certain
Like Norwegian.
ethnicity, yeah, They came and they didn't come across as very, I think they had rough lives, but I don't think they were super friendly kind of people. And anyhow, I just was like, you people don't worship the same God I do. Because the things that happened, I was just like, geez, I'd never been around church people that were so mean. I was
Right.
just like, ugh.
And so your husband was in the armed forces.
He is in the Air Force. Yeah, he joined the Air
So
Force.
when did he join? Was he in ROTC at college or anything like that?
No. Actually, when he went on his mission, he was a little bit older than most guys.
Okay.
So when we got married, we were 23. I was 23. He's 6 months younger than me. So anyhow,
And where did he go on his mission real quick?
Arizona. So Tempe.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, down in that area. And he was
That's my stomping grounds there.
Yeah.
I was raised there.
Yeah. He was a good missionary. I mean, he believes everything, but he used to call me all the time. He
Wow.
wasn't supposed to,
He
but
broke the rules.
yeah, we'd call and talk and all that. Like my dad, like I said, was pretty difficult, so I needed somebody, and I had that kind of voice that was so soothing and just helped me through a lot of rough stuff.
Yeah. And that was back in the day when long distance cost money.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to sneak those calls in because
Yeah. Well,
we were only allowed 2 phone calls a year, and that was to our parents.
Wow.
Christmas and Mother's Day.
I probably things are a little lax. They did a lot of things maybe they weren't supposed to. They'd go swimming. There's some lake there that they'd go swimming and different things. Yeah.
Yeah, Arizona is where Satan goes to vacation, I think. He can relate to it.
So yeah. But I mean he's still a believer. I can't convince him otherwise.
Yeah. So did you decide did you make a mutual decision for him to join the Air Force?
No, I didn't know anything about military. I wasn't part of our family or anything. So he came home one day. His brother had been in the Army, and his brother was living there at the same time that we were in Idaho at that point. We had got married and lived in California for a short time, but the jobs weren't working out, and I got pregnant, so I was sick all the time. So we decided to move back to Idaho because he could work at the sugar factory and could make good money. But he was like, I don't want to work at the sugar factory my whole life, which a lot of people do. So he went with his brother, unbeknownst to me, to the recruiters and talked to him about the Air Force and stuff. I came home one day and said, I want to join the Air Force. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, okay, whatever. So
where'd you have to move once he had, what did they have, boot camp first?
Yeah, he went to San Antonio to boot camp, and then
you stayed.
I packed up and went with my dad. My dad had a motorhome, and I'd had my first daughter then, and we went from Idaho, went up to Seattle, and went to the Space Needle. I have pictures of all this, and then came down the coast and back to California. And then when he was done with that, he flew into LA. And he had to train in Wichita Falls, Texas. And so we drove across there and were there for 6 weeks. And then we got orders to Travis Air Force Base. So then we drove back. And
that's 60 miles from where I live right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were there for like 9 years. So we back and forth between San Francisco and Sacramento and all that area. So we lived.
And you found your way to Alaska.
Well, my older brother got married in 1990, and he called me up and invited me to his wedding. So I was like, oh, by then I had 3 kids, and my youngest, my son was around 2. So I went to his wedding. I took my son. I flew up there and went to his wedding, and he's a pilot. So he flew me all around where he lived, the Homer area. And I came back and I was like, we got to go to Alaska. So you
fell in love with Alaska by flying around with your brother, your younger brother, right?
Older brother.
Your older brother. Okay.
My younger brother, he was at that point, I can't remember what he was doing then, but anyhow, he had been in the Air Force. He was going to be a pilot in the Air Force and stuff, my younger brother. But he and my dad were both there at the wedding. And anyhow, I came back, told my husband about how awesome it was there. And so he went and put orders for it. Well, we didn't think we'd be able to get there because everybody else wanted to go. So we put it in just hoping. And then one day he calls me up and says, we got orders to Alaska. I didn't believe him. I thought he was kidding with me. I was like, nah. He's like, yeah. I was like, no. Finally, he's like, I said, well, where? And he's like, Eielson. And I was like, well, I wanted Elmendorf, which is Anchorage area. And Eielson is up by Fairbanks. But then I got over that. So we packed everything up.
Well, at least you're closer to Santa Claus.
Yeah, North Pole is 10 miles it was between Fairbanks and the base. So
No kidding. Did you ever get to visit him there?
Santa? Yes, we did. The town of North Pole is between Fairbanks. Every time we drive into Fairbanks, we'd go right by it. And they have a huge Santa statue there. And when we were first there, one of his arms was broken off. Well,
oh no!
Finally fixed it, but yeah, you could go in there and see Santa, and they had all kinds of ornaments and stuff. Still there, that little store.
The town of North Pole is still a couple thousand miles away from the real North Pole.
Yeah, it's not the real North Pole. I don't know why, but that's the name of the town.
They call it for a tourist. I don't know if it's one of the northernmost inhabited cities in the world. I don't know, but
North Pole? No,
they did it for the tourism, I bet.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was. It wasn't much there when we were there. Everything has grown. It's a lot more stuff there now. But when we were there, we were all excited because we got a little Caesars come in there at one point. But that's about all there was there. That, and I think maybe a McDonald's or something.
Yeah, so I'm torn between whether we finish your story and talk about and just touch on your brother's death and talk about the book, or if we should talk more about your brother's death. But
probably if we're already in Alaska, that's where it all starts. So
let's just go ahead and tell the story, and people can read the book more, and we'll have a link to buying the book. But
we moved up there in 91 and drove to Alcan, which was awesome, 6 days. And then my brother came up that into that summer, or he might have been, I think he was there because he was fine. He was learning from my older brother what he would do is go out and spot for the salmon. They fly around and they'd see the schools of salmon, and then they'd tell the fishermen. So they call it spotting salmon. And then he was teaching my younger brother to do the same thing. Well, my younger brother had been in the Air Force, but he was going to be a pilot. And at the last minute, they told him they didn't want to be a pilot. He wanted to be a navigator. And he did not want to be a navigator. And his contract was to be a pilot so he could get out. So he got out. He was really depressed, but he ended up going up and flying with my brother in his planes and stuff. And then that end of the fall of 91, he bought his own airplane in Salsha, Alaska, which is just outside the base, little town. We went with them. I have pictures and stuff. Anyhow, and then he actually flew from Alaska that winter. He flew down to California in his plane, and then he flew back up next spring. And he worked with my brother and did learn again doing the spotting and stuff. And then when that was all done, the end of that season, it was September, and he came up to visit us. So from Homer to where we live, it's about 600 miles, I think, as the crow flies. So he flew up to visit us and was there about 12 days, but he was trying to go back. And this is October now. And there's already snow on the ground and everything by probably a foot or two. And he kept calling weather, trying to find out if he could go, because VFR, which is visual flight rules, you have to have so much, see so far and all that to fly. So he finally, the day that he left, he called twice. The first time he called, he couldn't go. And then the second time, it looked like there was going to be a hole of weather. So he's like, I got to go now. So we packed up my truck and I drove him to the airport and helped him. An airplane's weight sensitive. So he had everything out and he was putting all the stuff in to distribute the weight right. And then he left and I watched him take off. I usually would stay and wait until I couldn't see him anymore, but this time I didn't. So he left, and then about 8:00 that night, I was like, he would always tell me that he was going to call but back then there's no cell phone, so you had to go find somebody's phone or a payphone. Well, I didn't hear from him at about 8:00, and he had told me, well, when he left, he said, well, if it looks bad, I'll turn around and come back. But I hadn't heard from him, so I got worried. And I called my older brother and just asked if he'd heard from him. And he's like, no. So that, long story short, 2 days. That was Friday. Saturday, I waited all Saturday. Called my brother again. He wasn't there. He said, check with this girl that he knew in Anchorage. I got her number, called her. He wasn't there. She hadn't seen him.
Right. And the flight would have had to take about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
And so that you were expecting a call 6 or 7 hours later.
Yeah, or if he'd stopped somewhere, he could have stopped in Anchorage, and spent the night or something. And
would he have to stop and fuel?
They carry,
or would the plane go that far?
No, he carried like 4 or 5 gallon gas jugs. So yeah, he probably would have had to stop somewhere and fuel up. So Sunday night rolled around. I still hadn't heard from him. And I was like, well, I'm going to file a report. I was worried that they'd be angry at me, because if there was nothing wrong, and here I am filing a missing pilot's report. And he didn't file a flight plan. So we didn't have any idea where he was. And so that was the start of it. And he was literally missing for 10 months. And we didn't know where he was all through the winter. My dad came up in April that next year to help to search for him.
So after you file the missing pilot, how long does it take before they start a search?
They started a search right then. They took a bunch of information. But the problem was when he left Friday, it was clear. I mean, we drove to the airport and you could see clear to what they call the Alaska Range. You could see the mountains off in the distance. By Sunday, there was a storm going on, and there was another airplane that had left with 4 people on it. And so what happened is my brother's search got lumped in with their search, so a lot of the facts got mixed up. And then the other thing is what they call it back then was RCC, Rescue Coordination Center, was in Anchorage. So I couldn't be in Anchorage. I was up there at Allison. What they neglected, nobody told me, was that the CAP, which Civil Air Patrol, which does searching, was right there on the base where I lived. And nobody told me about it. I didn't know they were there. I could have gone over and talked to them. I could have told them all the particulars, I didn't know about it till later, till after. And they only will search for like 2 weeks. And then they go, sorry.
So that search happened without you participating or knowing what's going on or anything like that?
A lot, yeah.
The first one, right?
Yeah.
And then the bad weather. This happened in October?
Yeah.
Then it's winter, all the rest of the...
Yeah. So you don't know there's stories of people that have crashed and found a little cabin or something and lived the winter out. So you can't just say they're gone.
Cross your fingers and hope. Yeah. Right.
And, people wanted me to say he was dead. And I was like, no, until I have definitive proof, even to this day, if I didn't have something to prove it.
So the winter happens and the other search happened and you got like a little report that said they didn't find anything or... a little bit of
No,
communication.
there was, I mean, obviously that's why I wrote a book. There, a lot went on during that time. We had pilots in the Air Force that were flying, and they would
So, like on your own, you just spread the word.
tried to. Yeah, I didn't know who to talk to back then. I didn't know, who do you contact? And everything was happening in Anchorage. And my older brother had come up to Anchorage and was talking to them. And because he's a pilot, so he was doing some helping flying and stuff like that. If we did. So,
And I became friends with you on Facebook because we had a common friend that I knew that lived in Alaska.
yeah.
And I'm wondering how and maybe we had some other common friends as well. But I was thinking, how do you know this person? So I think I texted you and said, how do you know
Oh, yeah. Mick.
Mick Bat, right?
Yeah, because
He taught us how to do dance for Dance Festival, and so he was a popular guy in our stake, and like, oh, he's in Alaska now, right? And so I was like, how do you know him? And then you said he helped. So about what month did he start helping? In the spring?
It would have been spring. Yeah, it would have been because snow was gone by then. Well, what happened is that there was a state conference, and I had asked if they would please announce that my brother's missing and if anybody could help or would help with anything. And he was the only person out of everybody that stepped forward because he had his own plane and he worked for the Fish and Game, I believe. And so he took my husband and I, and we flew around different areas up there in Fairbanks area. So,
And at all of this search going on in these planes, I know that this is probably information to come, but was he ever found? I mean,
yeah.
is it still a mystery, or?
The mystery is that we don't know really what happened. Yes, two hikers found his airplane. They happened to be hiking and found the plane. And
The end of August or September, around September,
August
a year
13th. August 13th. I still remember that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And about how far was it from where you were? How far did he get before he crashed?
He crashed up in a ravine above a town called Eagle River, which is about 10 miles out of Anchorage, which would be like 10 miles.
So he almost made it to Anchorage.
Uh-huh. There's so many. We really don't even know why he was there.
And how far is Anchorage
from
your house, from your
from
where he took off?
Miles, I couldn't tell you for sure. I know that it
like
was
halfway or 2/3 of the way.
Yeah, home. Yeah, probably about 2/3, I would say, because from Anchorage to Homer is not as far as from Fairbanks to Anchorage. So, I mean, if you're driving from Fairbanks to Anchorage, it's about an 8-hour drive.
Right.
So,
was your brother's remains in the plane, and were they able to return them to you?
Oh, that's another story. The hiker that found him, we talked to him. He said that the remains were in there. The state troopers and NTSB got there before we ever saw it. So they moved the plane around. They got the remains and everything. They did take my father and I, we flew up in a helicopter and got to go to the crash site and see the plane. Of course, they'd moved it all around and everything by then, and we didn't see any remains. My dad, I think, found like a knuckle or something, one of his bones. But we asked to see the remains, and they refused. They would not let us see them. And
what?
I was like, yeah.
How did they refuse that?
They told us, oh, well, you'd have to have a chaplain. This was the NTSB agent. They wouldn't let us see him.
I guess I'm curious.
No, this is another thing. There's all kinds of weird things that happened. The hikers that were up there said that they took like 200 pictures. I asked for pictures. They gave me 26 pictures. They wouldn't. And then I caught them in a lie later. We were in the office talking to him, and I said, well, they asked for pictures. And I was like, well, you only gave me 26. And he's like, oh, yeah, we only gave you the ones we thought were appropriate.
So there's only 26 pictures. I know that in cold weather, and it was probably very cold, right? Where he crashed.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he would be, his remains would probably be preserved enough that you could at least have him cremated and have
Well,
a funeral and stuff.
he was cremated. I have his ashes. My dad was he wasn't married or anything, so my dad was the next of kin, so he had control over everything. And so I couldn't, we both asked to see the remains, but they didn't want to let us see them. And my dad didn't push it. And so he just let them cremate him. Sometimes I still wonder, well, was it really him? I didn't get to.
Right.
Well, that is a mystery to me, that there was
Yeah.
no confirmation. And
No,
Yeah.
and I still, even years after that, I would see somebody that looked like him, and I'd be like, you're doing that double.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's kind of cruel to you to have that happen.
Yeah, well, it seems morbid to a lot of people, and I'm not even sure I would want to see him and have that memory. But at the same time, it's like I don't have any proof. You can tell me that you matched the tent dental records, but I wasn't there. I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Well, by seeing him, that gives you a finality. That gives you a closure. I worked in the funeral industry for
Yeah.
a minute, and
Way to say goodbye.
I can't imagine that they wouldn't allow you to see the remains to give you that closure, because, like you said, who knows if it was him or not? Probably was, but it leaves that question mark in your brain.
Yeah, they're like I said, that's why the book is long, and there's so many really questionable things that happened. And when you have government agencies lying to you to your face, who do you can't trust that anything they did.
And so he died one year, and you found his remains the next year, or they found the plane, whatever.
He disappeared in October of 92 and was found in August of 93. So,
And so,
10 months.
So we'll let people know that. Did you think of writing a book right away about it, or did things pile up and start weighing on your mind?
No, after I went through all of it, having the searching time and then being found and all of that, I just knew after that I would write a book. I didn't know when. I tried a lot of times to write, but it's so emotional that I could never get very far. And then my father passed away in 2005, and my older brother and I went. He had all the stuff in a storage unit, so we went through all of it. And he took stuff, I took stuff, we threw away a lot of stuff. And when I got back home, I started going through it, and I found these binders with my brother's journaling in it. And I was like, whoa. So I started reading through all the journaling. And then I don't know. I had the journaling and I read through it, and it's like going back in time and living in that time with him and stuff, because I was there. A lot of stuff that he did, I was there in his life. And then I read this book about this guy. I was telling Jean yesterday. I read a little book about this guy who was born into wealth, had a great job, had great education, married, had kids, and then ends up with a mistress, and she got pregnant, and his whole life imploded, at all. And he ended up living in a little tiny apartment working at Starbucks. And so he tells this story and all the things that he's learned, and how he messed up his life and stuff. But at the very end, he says everybody has a story to tell, and everybody should tell it. And it just slammed me, and I just went, oh my gosh, I got to write. And that's what catapulted me into the writing. And I had all this stuff. I started writing the story. My dad had all kinds of paperwork. I still have totes of it, with all his information from the searching and stuff, because he drove up and down the state talking to people, finding people to fly him around and everything. Anyhow, so I had all of that, and then I started writing, and I went, oh, I should put my brother's journal entries in with the story. And so I went all through his journaling again and found all these journal entries that I felt kind of corresponded with the story as I told my story. So as you read my story, you get to know my brother, his life and his story.
What was your brother's name?
Timothy.
Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. So was Tim single, or did he have a family?
No, he was
single.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned that he had been depressed, and his journal entries. So like when I got your book, because I was fascinated by the connection I had with you, knowing McBat, and when I got your book, I was fascinated that how you included your brother's entries. And did you edit his entries very much? Because he was a really good writer, I thought.
No, no, I didn't really edit it at all. Maybe
Yeah,
a
so
comma or whatever, but he
was able to express himself in these journals, and I felt like I got to know him a little bit, and it was fascinating how you intertwined his journals with your story and how you were relating to your brother's problems or successes or failures or whatever was going on in his life. And you had hope for him that he would be a pilot because he missed out on the opportunity in the Air Force to pilot the thing that he liked to do. And he was about to like blossom and it got all, stolen basically through a tragedy. And then there's all the mysteries surrounding it that you go through. And it's a real fascinating book, and I highly recommend it to people. And I saw a gold medal on your book, right?
Well, Idaho top author award I won. It's in Idaho, so
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, and I can't wait to read it. I'm so baffled at the secrecy of the government's, withholding the information that.
It makes you wonder.
I mean, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, I addressed that in the book. I was like, well, what happened? We thought maybe because the area that he was flying, there's a lot of military. Like we were like, well, did they clip him? And cover it up? Because the area that he was in was never searched, because we got all the search grids from the RCC, and they sent them all to us where everything had been searched, phone over and everything. That area was not searched. And so it's like, and then the other part of that is that where his plane was, part of his tailpiece was missing. And then it was found after his plane was found the next year. Some friends hiked up and found the tailpiece like 1,000 yards down the creek bed from where his plane was. So it's like and then his plane had completely burnt. His plane was a fabric plane. So they wrapped the fabric around the metal frame, and then he put like what they call dope on it, glue. And
make it solid.
So if it catches fire like in the air, you're done, because you have no lift, because it burns down to a frame. So we think possibly somehow he caught fire in the air, and then
like an electrical shortage or something like that.
Or,
and he had
or fumes from the gas cans, yeah.
Right, gas cans.
But then why was his tailpiece broken off and down the ravine from where he was? I guess there's some explanations, but at the same time, there's trees and bushes, and so it was like, okay, so if a piece of his plane was missing, and NTSB did nothing, they didn't care, they didn't even.
the FAA, did they do an investigation and write a report?
Not the FAA, it's the NTSB that does it. And yes, they did.
Oh,
And
NTSB.
so, and that was the agent. We worked with the agent. My dad and I talked to him. He basically stood there and told us my brother was stupid and young and flew himself into the ground. And so that didn't go over very well. And then when all of it was over with, they told us, well, it'll be a year. In a year, you can call and get the report. So when a year came around, I called, and they couldn't find the report. And this is Washington, I think, D.C., wherever the main reports go to. They couldn't find it. It was gone. So they called Anchorage, and Anchorage, oh, we don't know where it is. So the NTSC came back to us and said, we want all your information so we can redo a report. So they wanted us to give everything that we had, all our, paperwork and everything and pictures back to them. So, and then it miraculously appeared again. The report showed up. So go figure. I don't, those are the kind of things you're like, okay, what's going on? How does a report disappear?
It just ain't making sense. 2 and 2 is not equaling 4 here.
No, so that's why I always think, well, did something happen and there was a cover up and they just, they just think, well, the other thing, small plane pilots it's always pilot error. They almost always, they blame it on pilot error and they don't care. They're like, just another one. That's the impression I got anyhow. There's not a lot of, the other plane that I talked about that was in the same search. It was some people that worked at a restaurant, and I think it was a young guy and his girlfriend and their parents or something. And the parent of the daughter came up the next spring, just like my dad did, and they had to go out, and they actually had, what an ELT is, and that's what is in the plane that it can give out a signal of where they're at. And they had an idea of where the plane was. And they ended up hiking and searching around. They actually found that plane with the people. The father of this girl found the plane. And of course, the remains were kind of scattered because the bears get at them and at the bodies and stuff. But so yeah, that was. But my brother, we had no idea. We didn't know where he was. We couldn't find any ELT signals or anything. So I feel very, very fortunate that he was found, because there's so many people up there that disappear and they'll never know what happened to them. So,
right.
And you have to live with that. At the time I had to live with that I may never know. I may never know what happened to him. But fortunately, we do know where he ended up. I don't know why or how, but.
And like I say, it was a totally different type of a book than I've ever read by having the way you made it. And I don't know if people say that to you very often, but I really appreciated reading the book.
Well,
it sounds intriguing.
Everybody that's talked to me about it says, I couldn't put it down. I started because it's a mystery and you want to know what happens. And I don't know. My own personal feelings are that when you're supposed to do something, you're supposed to do it. And it's like when I paint a lot of times, it comes through me from, I don't know what to call it, inspiration, divine, whatever. It's like, and I stand back and I go, I did that. It's like I didn't, like somebody else was guiding me or coming through me. And that's, the book is like that. And my artwork's like that. And once I started writing, I'd sit down. I was in a different house since I had my own big room and studio. And I'd sit down, I think at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And next thing I know, I'd look up and it was like 5 o'clock at night. You get so immersed in it. And it's like, you don't want to stop. And
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
So thanks for coming on the show.
I'm sorry, I was just looking. Your book is available on Amazon.
No, don't. Amazon's being kind of not very good right now. I would prefer you go through my website, which is gravitiesembrace.com, or it's all you can also cynthiafackrell.com goes to my art page, but you can also, it's linked to my book page. So either one of those, like a friend had tried to buy it on Amazon and they told her it was out of stock or something. I was like, I don't know what they're doing. They're just being kind of weird right now. I got to figure that one out. So
Yeah, it's kind of tricky with Amazon.
yeah, I mean, originally it was, but if you don't sell a whole bunch all the time, then they like sort of put you down in the dungeon or something. So yeah.
Yeah. So unless there's anything further to talk about, I think that I recommend people go buy the book. We'll include the links to it in our description and where to get it. And thank you so much for coming on the show and telling your story.
Well, thanks. There's a lot more to tell, but I appreciate the time that I got. Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing. I know it's a difficult topic because you've experienced a loss, but I think that others can certainly benefit by reading your story.
As I was writing the book, I realized that you can find joy within tragedy, and there was a lot of things that happened in that that helped me. And I don't know if you want to call it joy, but there were like little lights lit to help you along the way. And I just think all of our experiences in life are important, and need to look at them and decide what we learn from them and how to go forward.
Well, I know I speak for Jean as well. You know, please accept our condolences for the loss of your brother and congratulations. I think you're honoring him by doing what you're
Oh
doing.
yeah, it's leaving his legacy, and it gives me chills, that I was able to do that. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
So everyone, share this episode with people that you think might benefit from this book. I love the title too, Gravity's Embrace, because there's an embrace, right? Where we are hugging the earth, whether we like it or not. And at the same time, it caused your brother's death in part, right?
Yeah, I was originally going to name the book just Gravity, because the NTSB report the final report that finally came out, they said the reason for the crash was his plane collided with the terrain. And I was like, you guys are good. Gravity killed my brother.
Yeah. That's a brilliant statement.
Yeah, I could figure that out myself. So, but then that movie Gravity had come out right then. So I was like, oh, I have to make it a little different. So and then, Gravity too, it's not the embrace. I mean, I had to embrace all of the grief and all, to go through and do that, and it would embrace it and use it and have it in your life, because it doesn't go away, so it kind of is.
Well, if Tim could give you the answers, I know he would.
He sort of already has. So, but that's probably another cast for the things that I've experienced. But,
That's right. And you've written another book. Have you written, how many books have you written?
this is my cover that I've created, but it's called Free Falling into Flight, The Journey Through Pain, Discovery, and Healing. That's what I'm working on getting out this year. So,
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's just me like navigating all of this stuff and death and grief and learning how to heal. So
That's right. Lots of people. I mean, everyone's human. Everyone experiences death from their own personal perspective, but our relatives, our friends, I remember the first time I sort of faced that, like when I was really young, an uncle passed and we went to a funeral, but I didn't really understand what was going on. But then when I had a friend that grew up in the neighborhood pass away as a teenager in an automobile accident he was driving after he had moved away. That was the first time somebody like really close to me had passed, and it was just, it's something we experience a lot. I feel like it hasn't been very much in my own personal life, the close tragedies compared to you and Randy. Um, and so, but the little that I have, I can imagine how bad it is for people that experience it more.
When you lose a parent as a child, lose my mom, I went through life. I did everything I was supposed to do. Got married, had kids, raised them, and all that. And then in my 50s, all of a sudden, all the trauma from that stuff as a kid just sort of slammed me, and so I've been dealing with it for a number of years now, trying to figure it out, because it created behaviors and things that were not very good. So you have to look at yourself and you have to say, why am I doing this? Why am I being like this? And then your kids also remind you, it's like, hey, mom, you could act better than that, or whatever. And I really had to examine all of it. And that's a lot of what the new book is about, is going back into addressing the trauma as a child that I never did. And my dad we don't do therapists or psychologists or anything like that. So
just rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, you just buck up and keep moving. And I don't think that's healthy personally. But
at the risk of being too personal, have you sought out therapy for this?
Yeah, I've seen several in the past years. I've gone to them for different things. I could probably go again, but I haven't found the right person yet. So.
I cannot recommend it enough to all those listeners who are going through some sort of trauma. It's so important to seek out help through a therapist and help you understand why you're feeling like you're feeling.
Well, for me, it was a lot of reading. I like to read. And so a lot of it I learned through other books. And there's so much information now about trauma that there wasn't before, and understanding why you act the way you do or the behaviors that you have, because it's all related to that. So
Right.
If you can see that and sort it out and learn it, whichever, therapists are wonderful. Yeah. But you have to find the right one too. So
yes, absolutely.
And that can deal with the kind of issues that you have. So
that's right. Well, thanks again for everything. Everybody like, share, and subscribe, and have a great rest of 2025. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cynthia. Bye-bye.
Thank you.